Hey, what's up, Lightbolt Joe here. Today we are going to discuss the 2018 sci-fi horror thriller drama film, A Quiet Place. This is directed by John Krasinski. This is starring John Krasinski, Emily Blunt, as well. So to have husband and wife duo work together is just so cool. And this movie won so many awards. This is an original story. I forget who wrote it, but this this is a nice and interesting different take on apocalypse. So what happens, and we've had alien invasion, projects before, right? So what happens if there's an alien invasion, but not an actual invasion? What if these creatures crashed on Earth, um, and they were hostile, but they crashed on Earth from a meteorite? And what happens, right? These particular creatures that happen to have come to Earth via meteorite are blind. They're very sound, like sensitive, so they just attack and kill anything that makes too much noise. Um, so the story starts out day 89, as in regards to 89 days since day one. We're in upstate New York, where it's kind of where the epicenter where this meteorite happened to crash land, and this family of three is going into town, quietly, stealthily, no shoes because shoes make noise. And so the 4-year-old son grabs a rocket ship toy and they take the batteries out, but then give the toy back without batteries, but then the kid takes the batteries. And so then he is killed on the way home because he turns it on, makes the rocket ship sounds as any 4-year-old would, and then creature comes and takes him away, and that's it. Then we have day 3 something, 300 something. So we're like past a year. It's shown that Emily Blunt's character is now pregnant, and then they're preparing, in regards to how do you soundproof a baby, right? So they inhabit this farm. This family now inhabits this farm. The oldest daughter is deaf, so John's character is working on different versions of hearing aids that attach to her implant, to make sure to try to get her to hear again. But then they're all learning sign language. They all have learned sign language, of course. But then it's how do you still remain quiet? What happens if there's a fire? What happens if there's things that do make noise? How do you defend yourself to these armored plated creatures that are like a cross between bats and gorillas, wingless bats and gorillas, walking on knuckles kind of a thing, but like skin to bone in bat kind of thing. That's the best explanation of them, and I know that storyboard wise, that's how they were explained as well. So, what happens? What happens if they just kill to kill and they don't kill to eat? They're not hunters. They're just trying to stop anything that makes noise, any creature that makes noise. Natural occurrence like a waterfall or a river that doesn't. That's different. It's the stuff that speaks vocally, things of that nature. So it's an hour and a half long. It's just so quick. We then flash to today 400 something. So we're a year and a half into this pandemic, into this apocalypse. What happens? How do you survive? What happens if do you have to sacrifice yourself to save your family? Things, right? It's very interesting dynamic, and to have the main actress, her real name is Maleficent. She is actually deaf, so she taught everybody sign language to use throughout the film. It's just so authentic, and to have the high pitched frequency that her newest hearing aid that John's character made for her be the trigger that these creatures are not prone to, are what's immune? What's the opposite of immune? Not immune to high pitched noises, that it affects them, that their plates, the armored plates, then come apart to show the soft tissue on the inside, and then that's when you can actually take a shotgun and blow their head off. It's by getting through the plate. And to have the different newspaper articles around too, like in the beginning of this pandemic, in the beginning of this apocalypse, showing what's their weakness. It's sound. You have to be quiet, stuff like that. When did the papers stop? How many people have died in the course of all of this? How many monsters are there actually? If this was a targeted, if it wasn't targeted, if the meteorite started in New York, upstate New York, how are there different occurrences happening in different parts of the world? Was it just one meteorite? Was it multiple meteorites? Uh, Going into background on the creatures, John and company have explained, they're from a lightless planet, that this is their evolutionary track. The planet obviously was destroyed, but somehow they have a much higher gravitational field than we do. So that's how they could survive on meteorites, by hitchhiking a ride and then eventually just survive the impact of crashing on Earth. It's not described or explained in the story, but that's what the creators have told us, within interviews and stuff like that, within storyboarding and stuff like that. So it's neat getting the backstory not on film because the creators are telling you. So is it canon if the creator is telling you, but it's not actually documented within the film? I know it's hard to agree to some things because different fandoms will say one thing versus another thing within different properties and things like that. I don't know. I think it depends. But this was so well done in 2018. This did so well in the box office. It was like a $17 million budget, and it grossed over 370 something $1,000,000. Like, that's unheard of, but it's just so well done. I remember seeing this in theaters in 2018. I think I went after work one day, and I sat, pretty close to the screen. And like at the beginning of the film, people are eating their popcorn and like chewing their candy and drinking the sodas and stuff. And then no one said anything. And it's very rare when you're in a theater. And I honestly, I don't like going to the movie theaters anymore, especially, post pandemic. But people are idiots. So people will talk and people will be on their phones and people will bring babies to rated R films for God only knows what reason. I can't, I don't like the distractions. So having these sounds, chewing of the popcorn, opening bags of candy, slurping the sodas, 4 minutes in, 5 minutes in, when the kid grabs the rocket ship and they're getting out, and the kid is being killed, everyone stopped. We all stopped making noise. Nobody ate anything. Nobody drank anything. It was a packed house. It was a very packed house when I saw this. And no one said or did anything to make noise. No one got up to go to the bathroom. No one did anything. And it was so interesting because it was very immersive. It felt like you were afraid to make a sound that a monster would kill you. I think in the second part they called them Death Angels eventually, which we're gonna watch the second one next and talk about it. And then there's a prequel coming out day one, and then there's a third film in regards to this original Quiet Place trilogy. John Krasinski directed, and that core family story continuing on. But there's other survivors everywhere. So what happens next? Did this Abbott family, excuse me, did they share the knowledge that it's the high frequency that can, catch them off guard and get the plates away, and that's how you can actually kill them? I haven't seen the second one, so we're going to go into that. Now, this came out in 2018. The sequel premiered, and I remember this, it premiered March like 7th or 8th in 2020, and my birthday is March 7th, so I remember it was like right by my birthday. And then Friday, March 13th, 2020 is when the world shut down because of COVID. So they pushed the film to like May of 21 for its release, because that's when theaters are starting to get back open, the phased reopenings and stuff like that because of vaccines and protocols being used and safety things, coming into effect. So I think, if my math was right, it premiered in 2020, but it didn't come out until 2021 technically release-wise. So it's interesting to say, is it really a 2020 film? Is it a 2021 film? And it's also interesting to say that the timeline of this film is this had to have started in 2020, as in the events of the meteorite with the aliens coming on. It had to have started in 2020 because 2021 is primarily when the film takes place, the day 400 something, all these years later. So it's interesting. It's so original and it's so quick. And Emily giving birth in the bathtub and screaming while there's fireworks going off is a distraction. The creature running through the house, and to have them affect electricity, like you could tell when they're around if they're not making noise by the electricity flickering. It's just so creepy, bro. It's so creepy. It's so well done. It's great horror. And I looked this up, there's 86 seconds worth of dialogue in this 96-minute long movie. Unheard of. This was a film ahead of its time. This was the start of something new. High School Musical, pun not intended. Within franchises, within film, within storytelling, that it doesn't have to be vocally speaking, that you can learn to adapt. And this was them learning adaptation. This family was speaking in sign language on behalf of the eldest daughter, but it came in handy because they couldn't make sound in order to survive. It's so cool. It's so cool. Adapt or die, evolve or die. One of my all-time favorite mantras within life. Adapt or die. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. On to the next review. Mucho mahalo.